So continuing on in this particular image over here, um, it was so it's a mix of intention as well as bringing in her personality in. So again, just go back to thinking about all of those different elements that you have in a photograph. And here I did set up my light to the right side of the frame. I was using OCF over here. And my daughter was just, she kind of wanted to play with the camera as well, but she wanted to play with my camera, and I did not want her to do that for obvious reasons. So I gave her just a basic small camera, instant camera to play with, and she just wanted to have a pretend play to be a photographer like mom. So I just told her, hey, do you want to take photos of mommy? And she just went and sat in that place, but she wanted to make sure that she has her baby Lammy and her her Minnie Mouse in the frame. And I often talk about how I don't like pink in the frame in my images. But again, this is part of her story, right? Because when I am taking images, for example, of my daughter in a situation like this, I do talk about who the story is, who the viewer is, and figuring out, the three components in the image of the artist, the viewer, and the subject, and the connection viewpoint. So I talk about this quite a bit in lesson 1 and lesson 2 as well. But in this story, my perspective was to tell the story from her perspective, right? So the connection viewpoint over here was from her perspective. So it was her story that I was hoping to tell. So which means that whatever, little things that she brings in the frame, I had to be okay with it. And that adds to the story, right? So to me, being someone who really likes a minimalistic approach to images, and I love a minimal frame, I like to reduce the number of props, the number of clutter, or anything else that I have in the frame. So I did set up this as a vision in terms of where I wanted to shoot. Location was something that I controlled. For example, light was something that I controlled. Clothing was something that I controlled. But the story was just something that she controlled. So again, go back to that first slide that we talked about as to various elements in the image, and think about what elements that you are controlling versus what elements that your subject is controlling versus what elements you have to sort of just go with the flow because that's what you have to work with that particular day, or that particular situation allows you to work with. Okay, so here in this image, this was a double exposure of my daughter just playing with strawberries, and this was just taken for a Fruit Loop that I was doing with a few other artists that we were creating with strawberries. So my daughter here was just playing with strawberries, and what I had in here, so this is actually an image of 2 different frames, and deconstructing this. So she was just right here, and this is a table with strawberries where she almost bit into every strawberry that was on the table. And she was wearing red. She was holding a strawberry. So I wanted that real monochromatic red feel to the image. But again, it's just, not exactly monochromatic, but maybe like a dichromatic, because I had 2 colors in the frame. So I wanted something where the strawberries were very overwhelming and the red was very overwhelming. But she, she was over here sitting and she wasn't really having it. And she was eating the strawberries, and none of those frames seemed very interesting to me. So I was just clicking and then kind of just pausing and talking to her. And she was just playing with the strawberries and just doing whatever she wants. And I had this image where she was just, having her hands up and her feet up. And then another image, a second image, where I took of the strawberries top down. And in post, when I was just looking at all my images, I really wanted something a little bit more to go with the story, or to go with what was happening in the situation at that particular time. So I combined both of these images in post-processing to create a double exposure sort of a feel to the image. And hence you see this, it just feels like a strawberry painting in the background while she is just playing with it. So it's a little bit quirky, it's a little bit different, it's a little bit odd, but that just really gives a perspective or a dimension to this image. And it would have not really been the same if she was just looking at me straight. It would have been a really posed, forced portrait of her just holding or eating strawberries, right? That would have just given a different perspective. But again, sometimes when your kids are completely done taking photographs, that's when you can actually get really beautiful gems out of it, where you're just kind of silently observing what they're doing, and you have the scene set up, but you're just following your kids' instincts, or even your clients. When you have your clients, and especially kids that you photograph, their personalities can really come into play when you just sort of let them be and let them define the story or the moment or the scene that you have set up, but they are just sort of taking it forward. So I hope this helps, because this is a question that I get so much about which elements to let go and which elements to keep. And sometimes I hear so many artists struggle where, oh my gosh, the light is terrible, or I don't see any interesting perspective, or I don't know what the story is. So do not think that you have to have all of these elements equally represented in every image that you take, because that just cannot, it can happen, but it cannot happen on and on in every image that you take. So give yourself the freedom to let go of one element at a time, and be okay with it. So adapting and being open as an artist is super important, especially when you are working towards letting go of perfection, or letting go of certain elements in your image. So I hope this helps.